This is Hannibal from the HannibalTV.com. Just to warn everyone in advance, this is not a wrestling related video, so if you're only on this channel for wrestling content, save yourself the burden of watching this and turn it off now. And the reason I'm doing this video, which is about Ouija boards today, is because it's almost Halloween. We're only pretty much a couple days away from a very fun day of the year always. And I've had people ask me what my opinions are of Ouija boards recently on Facebook, where you could follow me at Devon Hannibal Nicholson. And yeah, so I wanted to give my story on Ouija boards. I had an experience actually on Halloween of 2001. I had recently moved to Calgary after doing some professional wrestling out there for the Mat Rats pilots. There were some Mat Rats pilot television shows. Then I ended up moving out there permanently, or semi-permanently anyways, to train. And when I moved out there, when I first got there, I didn't have a place selected where I was going to live. So my parents arranged for me to stay at the house of a friend who lived in Calgary, actually the Ogden area of Calgary, where Stampede Wrestling around that time used to run events at the Ogden Legion. Anyways, it's kind of an older section of Calgary, kind of like not a high-end section of Calgary. And I was staying at this place for a short period of time until I was able to find a place to live. So what this has to do with Ouija boards is it was two parents and a son that lived in this house. And the son was maybe around 24. I was 17 or just turned 18 around this time. And I've always loved Ouija boards and the supernatural and stuff like that. And their son, who lived in one of the rooms in the basement had 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, and a den where there was a TV, a couch, a rocking chair, and so forth. So anyways, the kid that lived with them was also interested in this type of stuff. So on Halloween 2001, we decided to go out and buy a Ouija board. And we first took the Ouija board to a bunch of cemeteries to see if it would work in the cemetery. And we didn't have much luck, and it was freezing cold. I remember that year. It's Calgary. It had already snowed a couple times that year, and it was cold. So we had enough of going to the cemeteries. We weren't having much luck in the cemetery, so we took it into the den in the basement of this house. The parents were gone this night. I don't know where they were gone, but we were in the basement, and we were the only ones in the house. And we took out the Ouija board. I remember I believe we had even rented a horror movie. I believe it may have even been a silly one like Leprechaun, and Leprechaun was playing in the background, and the lights were on in the basement. And we may have turned the volume to the movie down a little bit, and we were trying to get someone to talk to us on the Ouija board. So anyone that's used Ouija boards before know that you're supposed to ask, do you want to talk, to get this going, to try and get something to talk to you. So I kept asking the board if it wanted to talk to me, and it kept saying no. It was being pulled to no every time. So we were getting some activity out of the board, but I was getting kind of annoyed that the board kept being pulled to no. So I started getting rude with the way I was asking. So finally, the board actually pulled itself to no, and on the exact moment that the cursor, the arrow, went to the no, the entire power went out in the house at that exact moment. So yeah, the power went off on the TV, all the lights went off. I remember he had to get a flashlight because most people, this was still the early days of cell phones. There was no real lights on phones, so we had to find a flashlight and turn the lights back on. But I always found that interesting, that that Ouija board, I annoyed it enough that it turned off the power in the entire place. And I remember shortly after that, I began to feel more uncomfortable in the house. Now I would actually like to live in a house with a ghost in it. Back then I was not as familiar with this type of stuff. And I remember one day, my bedroom was at the end of the basement. And to walk to the bathroom, I had to go out and I had to turn to my left. And I remember as I looked in the den, this is only a day or two after this Ouija board incident, you could see the light coming from the street, because there was a little basement window that shone down. And as I looked in the den, as I was walking to the bathroom, I saw the rocking chair in the den moving on its own. Now this is Calgary around November, early November. The windows are closed, obviously. How is a rocking chair going to move on its own? So I remember that freaked me out a little bit. So I turned on the light, and the moment I turned on the light, the rocking chair stopped moving. And when I turned the light back off, the rocking chair kept moving again. So I did that 3 or 4 times until I think I finally just left the light on and went back to sleep for the rest of the night. And shortly after that, I moved out of that house. I'd found a place somewhere else to go. But I do remember the one weird thing is we told this guy's parents, who were letting me stay in their basement, what had happened with the power going out in the Ouija board, and they insisted that I immediately get the Ouija board out of the house. I had to take the Ouija board out of the house and leave it in the trunk of my car for the remainder of my time there. They were insistent on that. So I thought that was just a really weird experience, and I hope to have more experiences like that in the future and maybe one day capture something like that on tape.